right, everybody. Well, welcome back to another episode of the Blazer Victory Podcast. John Duncan here, and I'm joined with Darian Smith, one of my co-hosts. Now, Jimmy Marion, our another co-host, will not be joining tonight for the recap because Baby Hampton, or as Darian likes to say, Baby Hydrogen, was born. And I don't want to say too much because I know Jimmy, you still haven't made it officially on Twitter.
He
But
he, he posted a picture on Facebook.
okay, yeah, so we can talk about it, right?
Yeah.
Yes, well, congratulations to Jimmy and Natalie and Hatton. Hatton gets to be an older brother for Hampton, so super excited for you guys. So it'll be
And
just like,
John,
yep,
we got to talk about this because the baby came before the game and
yeah,
came pretty urgently. So, I said, "Hey, this is a sign, y'all. Like I'm almost certain." And I was serious. I told y'all I was serious. I said,
you
"Man,
did, you did.
H2 would not come into this world to a loss." I like
Right.
God foresaw everything. I knew God was like, "I'm not gonna let his team
Yes,
lose. Like we're gonna turn it around." And H2
yes,
was the sign. So I'm glad for the dub. I'm glad we smoked USF.
yes.
I'm happy for Jimmy. I'm happy for Nat and Haddon. And hey man, here we are.
Yes, and Jimmy will be back at some point, guys, but we are definitely letting him take a break as the Marion family gets adjusted to their new blessing in that family. But let's get into this game. And before we get into this game, all of our game recaps this season of the Blazer Victory podcast are sponsored by Cahaba Brewing Company. I am enjoying a celebratory Okauba IPA as we speak. So definitely give one of their core beers a taste if you're 21 or older, and go down to the tap room where we've had some good times down there already. Having a watch party last week at Tulane, but as always, thank you Cahaba for sponsoring this podcast and sponsoring this game recap. But Darian, UAB gets it done in blowout fashion, 56-35 over the South Florida Bulls, improving to 1-1 in AAC play and getting their very first win in the American Athletic Conference.
Yeah, and we did it impressively, man.
Yes.
I don't know if we should start this, but let me start by saying this. I don't I don't know a lot of USF fans, and the USF fans that was at the game were really cool. Like
Right.
they cheered for their team. They weren't belligerent. They weren't disrespectful. Like I saw some out, in this around the concourse. They were really cool. And then they were like very active, and they participated with the games on the screen and stuff. So they were really cool fan base in person. I hate that you got some of those people on Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
Man, it's the ones on Twitter. So after review, after review, after seeing them in person, I'm like, oh man, they some cool people. But man, they got some ignorant fans on online. That's why I'm so happy that we did smoke them, because I'm like, shut up. I was going through some of them that SoFlo account, whatever, Bulls Nation and CFB is the worst.
Oh,
Still
yeah.
still going and talking down, talking
Talking
about we a
about
little.
holding and stuff, man. Come
Well,
on.
just
Get out
talk,
of
but
here.
just going talking about we a little no name school. This was our Super Bowl and all. Who are y'all?
Right.
Why is this our Super Bowl? Like I don't understand that. But I know it might be some South Florida listeners. It ain't for the ones that's cool. Like I mean, hopefully some other USF fans can kind of check some of those accounts. Like, bro, like we humble ourselves. Like,
Right.
chill, humble. I know we do it as UAB fans, and we only punch back. We never start stuff, but we will punch back. So if y'all want to punch, we gonna punch back. Y'all punch 5 times, we gonna punch 10. So hey,
Yes.
shout out to Blazer Nation. We holding it down online, and we proud of our school, just like y'all are proud of y'all school. Let's be humble, and shout out Tulane. They super humble. Like,
Right.
I just had
Yeah.
I just had to put that out there. I know Blazer fans are like that.
No,
So
oh yeah. Hey, I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, because I've seen that, kind of scrolling through after the game and seeing, and then there are some good South Florida fans, especially like the Bay Area Examiner, who I made a guest appearance on their Patreon. Those guys are cool. Nathan and Steve, and those guys are really cool. But yeah, I think every fan base has that few fans online that like to just whatever for whatever reason run their mouth. But it seems that South Florida does have more than just some. So, but definitely, hey, let's talk about this game, 56-35. And Darren, we were kind of talking like this game wasn't even as close as that score indicates. Am I right in saying that?
yeah, and it's crazy because how this game started out, it was like, oh man, it was
Oh,
like we had the onside kick. First, the referee, the refs were like the slowest refs. But I'm gonna talk about the game because you can talk about everything and how long the game was because these dudes did not want to go home to their wives for whatever reason.
no.
Like, golly, y'all. But yeah, we started doing an onside kick. It looked perfect. It went 10 yards,
Hmm.
like, but they reviewed it and said illegal block or something. So we still had to kick it off. And they end up scoring on that. We got them to third down twice, but they end up scoring on the long QB run. And it was kind of like, oh man, it was quick 7-0, but we responded.
Right.
And I think that was major when we responded really quick with Buckhalter. That long
Oh yes, that was good.
just totally outran everybody and it went from there. But before I go any more into the game and how we smoked the cows, um, offensive line,
Ooh, they must have heard that Patreon, bro, because they look like a 180 from last week.
man, totally consistent effort. Zeno had time. Guys were there. One thing you did not see was like all the bust and like guys, it wasn't too many TFLs because guys
Hmm.
wasn't knifing in. Like all of a sudden, I said that, bro, if we can block up front, our skill guys are ready.
Hmm.
If we give Zeno time, I know he had one pass, but that was kind of like, what was that? He had plenty of time. There was no pressure, but
Right.
whatever. Like, look at all the good passes he had. Like, we carved them up,
Exactly.
but I cannot. The game ball goes to the offensive line. Those guys were physical. I was marveled at like how much push we was getting off. We worked up to the second level. We had our backs a lot of time was one on ones with safeties, and we break them off long game touchdown. Like Will Parker did a 360 when we talk about effort and we
Yes.
talk about consistency and we talk about being physical. The guy was getting pushed. I was like, golly, look at this big push in the middle. Like we started Tater Reed and Quez Yates on the right side. The guys did awesome.
Hmm.
They did. I have no complaints with the offensive line, like pass protection, running the ball. Like, mind you, USF has been good against the run all year, and we ran it down their freaking throats. It was one point in time I was like, let's not even throw it. Like, let's just keep running it.
Right.
So it ain't like we were going against a bad rush defense. Like they have a good enough track history to show. The thing is, we've been on the precipice ever since that Georgia game. Like we had that anomaly of the Louisiana game. That was like the darkest shadow,
Yes.
and that was hitting rock bottom for us. That was rock bottom from that game, from the storm and how bad it stormed, and we barely had fans there because of it, and then we got smoked. We switched our whole scheme. I felt like everybody looked themselves in the mirror. We came out against Georgia. Everybody thought we was going to get smoked 80-0. And we were really good against Georgia. Like we gave them a fight, and it was some plays we was like, man, if we would have just did XYZ, that would have actually been a real game in the second
Hmm.
half. Then we come back against Tulane, and this is why I don't understand why some people were kind of souring on the staff. We got so many young guys playing, so many, and we come back against Tulane, and we're on the road, and they're the top team in our league. They just won an NY6 bowl game against the USC last year, and returned so many of the guys, and their quarterback came back for their game, and we felt like we didn't win, so I ain't gonna say we should have won, but we had way more of an opportunity and we just made mistakes. and they took advantage of those mistakes. Shout out to Tulane. They won that game, but we were right there.
Yeah.
If that wasn't a sign that the staff has grown and this team has grown, I don't know what was a sign. So I was still really positive, but that record was 1-4, right?
Mm-hmm.
We come into this game, this USF team, they played Bama well. They beat Rice, they beat Navy. They was putting up big points, and they've been kind of rolling, especially with the quarterback. And we came out, John, and we came out physical. We came out playing assignment football. Our eyes was in the right spots.
Mm-hmm.
We limited their big plays. We turned them over. On one drive, we caught almost three interceptions to get one.
Oh yes, I remember that.
Yes, and it was so if guys had to, we we didn't give too many opportunities to them. We made them earn. They tried to go NASCAR, they tried to go fast, and we were in where we were supposed to be. We gave up that one long pass play that was a bust, and that was about it. Like as far as like busting coverages and stuff.
Right.
We had two defensive tackles. We had Joker Gill and Tyreek Howard. Both were out. We started true freshman McQuan Merriweather. And to sub in, we had true freshman Iman Smalls. And they did awesome. Awesome.
Right.
Freshman Lee Beebe, awesome running the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Freshman Amari Thomas, T Palm with those two long bombs, like touchdown, but the offensive line, I come back, the offensive and defensive line, I think defensive line did really good. Nikia Easton, a couple of sacks, Desmond Little sack. We really showed up with our assignments. Shout out to our linebackers, Sorrells and Braden. Like we've grown so much. I can keep going. Our safeties played well. I just think that we showed a lot of growth, a lot of improvement. I'm excited to go to UTSA next week, man.
Definitely.
We can go more in depth on the after review because we were like cheering, we was happy, our kids were all there together. But this
Yes.
was a good sign on how we won. We won really in the trenches, and then our skill players took us home. So
Mm-hmm.
shout out to our DBs, they were sticky in coverage. Man, it was just a good night.
Yeah, definitely. And before we get any further too, like we are titling this episode turnaround because this, as I was talking with Darian before we started recording, like this could potentially we could look back at the end of the year and look at this game as this was the turnaround where UAB, this team and staff turned around the season. And shout out to Richard Duncan, my dad, for giving me the idea of titling this episode, but I thought it really stuck, especially after this performance today. And you hit everything. I mean, I really don't have much to add on the team's performance, Darren. I thought UAB controlled the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. As you mentioned, this was the best all-around game that UAB's offensive line has played by far this season. And I thought the defensive line played their best game by far this season. So if you can just continue the improvements from this game heading into the Alamo Dome next week, by God, UAB can beat UTSA in the Alamo Dome. Like this ain't your mother's UTSA team. This ain't the same UTSA team that ran through Conference USA. I know they got Frank Harris back today against their win at their win in Temple, but I mean, hey, with UAB the way that they're playing right now, you can't tell me that UAB does not have a shot in that ball game if they can play the way they did today in Protective Stadium. Like, who's to say they can't go into the Alamo Dome and get the win? But we said coming into this game, you, Jimmy, and I, Darren, that this was a must-win game, and UAB showed it. You mentioned it, the first play of the game, the onside kick, which I still don't know. When we do our after review on the Patreon, shout out patreon.com/blazerpod. When we do our film review and look at what the illegal block that the refs called, I'm very curious to see what exactly that was. But I mean, hell, you mentioned, Darren, like how I know Skull. Hey, shout out 4 TDs, 18 carries for 116 yards. I mean, dude was a beast. Hey, Lee Beebe, looked like a beast tonight too. And there was no Isaiah Jacobs. I don't know for sure what happened there. Maybe he's a little dinged up. But you've got to feel good if you're UAB with the backs that you have, and hopefully get Jacobs back for next week. But my goodness, UAB, whenever they wanted to run the ball tonight, they ran that damn ball, and they did a great job doing it. And you mentioned, Tater Reed coming in, and he got hurt early on in the half, but still, the unit, the overall offensive line as a unit still played their best game, even when Tater Reed went out. Like it seems like you want to say like the light bulb is starting to click, Darian, because the way they played today, I mean, you and I could have ran through some of those holes that they were putting up on a decent South Florida defensive line. Like I don't want people to think like this is a trash South Florida team. Now I know we've trashed some of their fan base earlier, but I still think this is a pretty good, Alex Golish coached South Florida Bulls team, and they, very well should go to a bowl game this year and still could contend in the AAC. But man, UAB pushed them around on the offensive line, pushed their defensive line around, and UAB's defensive line really got after that offensive line and take away a couple plays that maybe there were some broken tackles, like on the touchdown run Byron Brown had early on in the game. But
Mm-hmm.
outside of that, dude, the UAB played a hell of a game tonight.
We were really disciplined. So
Yes, yes.
we really, I was sitting there and I started watching defensive line and how we rushed, and we rushed very, very smartly. Like guys were disciplined, they stayed in their lanes, they really just bull rushed most of the game, and then once they got to a certain level, they would put on a move. But they made sure to maintain gap integrity. Every time Brown tried to wiggle out of it, it was nowhere to go. We racked up sack after sack because he couldn't wiggle out. We made them pull it down. Shout out to the DBs. A lot of times they had to hold up in one-on-one coverage.
And they covered
One-on-one.
well. Yeah, and they covered well.
And one thing I said about that South Florida offense, they were really dynamic. Like Brown is really dynamic, their quarterback, and they have some dynamic receivers, but you know what they want to do. It's kind of like how we were last year on offense.
Mm-hmm.
You knew what we wanted to do. You knew we wanted to run the ball with Debo, and we were going to take our shots with Schrock, and we might hit some over the middle too. But it wasn't too much diversity. We were just going to try to be really good at what we do, and they're the same way. They love to run the ball, either with the quarterback or the running back. They love the slants coming across the middle, and they love to take their shots. And I think we really prepared correctly because we did a good job of being sticky in coverage, and we were right there with them, stride for stride. Shout out to our DBs. That's a lot to put on your DBs. And I think since our DBs were sticky in coverage and we took away what they wanted to do, it caused Brown to kind of hesitate with that ball. And then that's when I say shout out to our D line, because even with basically Joker Gill is like a starter, and even with Tyreek Howard as a starter, but even with them out. And you know what? Now that I think about it, I didn't see too much of Kevin Penn either.
I don't think he got out there. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he did. It was a lot of fish, unless he just rotated with fish. But we had true freshmen going in there and getting it done.
Yeah.
It's very impressive when freshmen can hold up, not only hold up but thrive on the line, not on
Yeah.
the end, but defensive tackle. We had two of them that do it. So I'm so excited. You saw Amari Thomas another freshman go for a long touchdown. One thing we knew going in, and I stand solid on that, is that I knew they weren't good on the back end. Their front seven is decent, and which is why I'm so surprised and I'm so happy that we just pushed them around like they wasn't decent. Like
Right.
we was getting pushed. I want people to understand it. Just a lot of the runs like we made against Tulane, like we still got defeated up front, but my running backs just made moves to get out, just try to make something happen. This game, I'm telling you, I give props. I want to give props. I don't like to quote unquote talk negatively, but you have to be realistic.
Mm-hmm.
And Tulane really whooped us, and not only they just whooped us in effort and our assignment wise, we just wasn't ready. This game, these guys sent exotic blitzes. Like, shout out to our running backs and our how they picked up on those blitzes on those. We were just really as one.
Yeah, as a
And
team, as a whole,
as
yeah,
a
they played well.
team,
Yeah.
like we locked on our blocks. I really, 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 really want to show love to that offensive line, man. It's just awesome job. Continue to build. Now you know who you are. That's who you've been this entire time. You just have to find it. As Trent like to say, revelations happen. You know,
Yes.
I feel like a lot of revelations happen. And shout out to our receivers in blocking. Like we were bullying those guys, like so downfield on a lot of those runs. Like those guys couldn't get off blocks. You see T-Pump, you see Farrier, you see so many guys. If they don't have the ball, it's a very unselfish group. They are
Mm-hmm.
blocking in. You know, it's Bryce Davis, Dallas Payne, tight ends. Like everybody is just locking up, and I'm just like, wow, this is beautiful. This is real football. This is when you can let your talent show. When you say, hey, we're not busting assignments. You know, shout out to guys like Will Soros, not busting assignments, being there on point where you're supposed to be, and you make them make plays, right? Like Brown, he made plays. You know, he's dynamic, he can do that, but we didn't give anything, and that is what I'm happy about. I'm happy that we didn't give it to him. We made him play. It was good talent on talent. And like I thought, our skill guys smoked, like just really smoked their defensive backfield. And our defensive backfield really won the battle against their skill guys. That was the difference. And then we were able to block them up front. And we saw, hey, talent versus talent, who can win? I think we showed that we're better than they are in that instant. And on to UTSA, man. I want us to keep it going. I think we can.
Yes, and 100% agree with you, Darren. Before we wrap, I know we're kind of 22 minutes in, so we need to wrap out in a couple minutes. But what you just said, I think if the offensive line can continue to, at least to the degree that they play today, going forward, if they could do that again, I think that will give us the chance to showcase our skill players, and that showcasing will be able to see like, hey, I think we have the best skill players in the conference. And I know we have a lot of teams in the league that our listeners listening to us from fans of other teams, but I say that very boldly. If the offensive line can continue to hold up and give Zeno time like they did tonight, then our skill players can showcase their abilities, and at the end of the year, we'll be able to say, "Hey, we have some of the best skill players in the AAC." And I know that's a bold take, but also one more thing before we wrap, Darian. UAB's up 28-14. Ball at midfield. 4th and 6. What does Trent
Woo!
Dilfer and Alex Mortensen do? They have the guts to go for it, and we're
We was like,
hey, punt that thing, yeah. Because if you don't get it, you give South Florida the ball at the 50-yard line, and I mean the momentum shifts the other way. But what a perfect play call, slipping. I believe it was Lee Witherspoon to
right.
the side
Shout out to
for
the running back dip.
a
We got plenty
easy.
of running backs.
Yes, yeah, we talked a lot about BB and Skull, but yeah, shout out to Witherspoon as well. And hey, Taven Curry is just as talented as well. But slipping him out to the side and easily getting that first down, and from there on out, UAB did not look back at all. So
And we
shout out to
talked
the
about finishing. We talked about
yes
finishing. We
foot to the
actually did.
throat. Yep.
We actually did the opposite of what we did at Tulane. We went and we got that first down. And then we scored to go up 35-14, got the ball back. And it was three and out, but guess what? We three and out them right back. And
Yep.
then we got the ball and then we scored to make it 42-14. I say, oh, that's ball game. Like we actually finished like in the middle halves. And man, if this team can build on this performance, like I don't want people to think like, oh, it was Children's Harbor, that's
Just a
why they
one
were just
time thing. Yeah.
right, like they were extra. Listen, I saw us get smashed on Children's Harbor. Was that what year was that? It was one Children's Harbor.
That was a Rice game a couple years
Yeah,
ago.
we
Yeah.
didn't get smashed, but it was a team that we were favored to beat in Rice, and they weren't all that year, and they beat us, Children's Harbor. So it isn't like it's just like we were extra motivated. This team has been getting better
Each
each
week,
week, and they've been showing it, and
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 we've
it
been
and it
saying that,
paid off.
Darian, too. Like, if for people that just look at box scores, like you're not getting the holistic viewpoint of how the season. Like if you've listened to the Blazer Victory podcast, and if you've read Magic City Impact, shout out to Tim and Steve doing a great job. If you've read Evan Daly from AL.com, like if you've really paid attention, and again listening to us at the Blazer Victory podcast, like these last couple weeks, and I know Trent and the staff hates moral victories, but Darren, we talked about it. It was getting there. Little by little, we were starting to get there. And I think, like you just said, if they can build upon this game today against South Florida, I mean, it is very realistic for UAB to get the dub next Saturday in UTSA and springboard the rest of the season.
And you talk about a fan base that we respect. Like
Yes.
I see UTSA like taking up for UAB. Like we told, they telling them like we
Hey,
told y'all.
mad
Shout out,
respect to UTSA. Yeah.
shout out Alamo Dome Audible. Shout
Yes.
out to all our friends over there. It ain't nothing
Well,
but
well,
respect.
Alamo Audible now.
Alamo
They
Audible.
were Alamo Dome Audible until the Alamo
Right,
Dome had to
yeah.
get involved. Yeah.
Alamo Audible. Like shout out to all our friends over there in UTSA. We respect those guys. Those
Yes.
guys are cool, and we're coming to get the dub. That's that's what we're supposed to do, and we'll talk about it afterwards. But it's different. Then shout out to the Bay Examiner and all the real USF fans. But those guys
Yes.
online, like y'all take this, we choke on it, man. Like
Take that L. Yeah. Take that
take
Woody
take
and back to
take
whatever
the
Tampa or
L,
whatever.
the Alabama of the AAC. Now get out of here with all that, man. But I know that was like one or two fans or three fans
Yeah.
talking. I don't know, but bro, like it's kind of like, come on, y'all not. Man, I can't. Whatever. But shout out UTSA, man. I'm really looking forward to that game, man. I think we're gonna get after them.
I think so. And hey, I wore my lucky hat today, Darren. So
Oh
2 and
yeah.
0, we're in the lucky hat. So even though I'll be at the beach next week for the UTSA game, I'm packing that freaking lucky hat and I'm going to be wearing it for that game. So
Yes, sir.
we're going to let this continue. Well, all right, guys, we are, 27, 28 minutes in. So we're going to go ahead and wrap. But again, patreon.com/blazerpod. Darian and I will do a after review where we review the film for the South Florida, and this is going to be a great game for once to review and kind of look at stuff that we didn't see in our initial viewing. But also, hey, should be in a couple interviews coming in the Patreon feed this week. I know for sure one will include from the Alamo Audible, Jared Kalmus, a great friend of mine, and they do a great job there. Alamo Audible covering UTSA athletics, so I can't wait to have him on. We'll probably get that in your feed probably Thursday morning ish. But for the free feed, folks, hey, let's celebrate this win tonight. Drink you a Cahaba beer or two, and let's look forward to UTSA. And in a couple of days, we'll have our preview out for the UTSA and the free feed. But Darian, go ahead and close us out.
Oh yeah, and shout out to all our listeners. There was so many of
Oh,
y'all
yes.
that
Let's
came
name
up
a.
to us.
We need
You
to
know,
name a
like,
few. Yeah, shout out William. Shout out Tim Stevens.
shout
Shout
out
out
Nathan,
Jeff,
Nathan Fagan,
Nathan,
Stephen. It
man,
was so many. It was a couple of them. Was it Jeff?
Jeff.
It
Yeah,
was
uh-huh.
so many guys, man. We really appreciate that. Like
We
we
love
we
that. Hey,
we
we
love
want y'all
that,
to
man.
interact. Yes, because this is a community that we've built with the Blazer Victory podcast. It ain't just us, me, Darian, and Jimmy. It's all of y'all listeners are a part of this wonderful community that because hey, when we started this thing, there, it wasn't that much going on
Right.
with coverage. So yes, we love this.
Shout out Stephen. Was there supporting. Man, so many of y'all, man. We love you guys. Honestly, thank y'all for just encouraging us. That means a lot to us. So, and for the rest of the free feed people that ain't hip to the Patreon, it's only $5 a month. You can do the annual and get 10% off, and you can just get it paid up for a year, man. Come on, we're diving in. We're putting in the work. We
We are
diving
putting in the
in.
work, man. And
We
I don't want
looking
to hear
at
nobody
film.
complaining. Nobody complaining on the free feed about us talking about the Patreon for 2 to 3 minutes. There's no ads on this show. We pump 2 episodes free each week. So if we want to spend 3 minutes just talking about the Patreon and all the hard work we do, by God, we're going to do it and we're going to continue to do it. So if you don't
Right.
like it, there's a fast forward button on your podcast app.
Right, and then we was just focused on putting out great content for you guys. A, because we love it, and we know you guys love it, right? And
Exactly.
we looking at film. John is going down. Shout out to you, John. He's going down to the practice facility. Let me remind y'all, we like three working men. It ain't like
Hey,
we
we
just
got
do this.
full-time jobs. Yeah.
we got full-time jobs. We all have multiple kids. We got wives. Like we have to work around to do a lot of this stuff. So and it's $5 a month. Like it's come on now. Like come on y'all. It's great content. Come on over and listen to the after review and a lot of the interviews that John does. So thank you guys.
Definitely. And expect more
Oh, should I
interviews.
go ahead?
Well, I can rap. Yes. Yeah. Y'all talk. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Well, shout out. Yeah. Patreon again, patreon.com/blazerpod. A couple interviews coming to you guys in the next few days. But as always, go Blazers and turn around, beat UTSA,
Keep improving.
and keep improving.